Hi, so a few days ago I was listening to one of Viper's streams, and he got a couple good questions about um, both how do you play 1v1s and not be too worried about losing, and how to stay calm under pressure and that kind of thing. So I wanted to hear what he said. It's about 5 minutes long clip, and then talk a little bit from my perspective, just to try and help players out who have a lot of anxiety and worry too much about the outcome of the games and about their elo. So, here we go. Hopefully you can hear this.
How do you keep so calm and avoid getting tilted when you're not doing so hot in a game? It's just a game, man. Right? You end up in a position where you're not doing so hot. There's probably a reason for that, right? There's no point getting upset about it. Just figure out what went wrong and learn from it, right? Usually isn't more complicated than that. Okay, let's get that gold focus going. You like my napping shirt? So do I. So do I. Did I kill those? Yeah, I did. He's preparing like a full siege push there. So I need archery ranges probably in the middle. Let's send a couple of ills there and get those archery ranges up. I get very intimidated to play 1v1s. Any tips? I think it's all about just realizing that no matter the outcome, it doesn't really matter, right? If people worry about the ELO, for example, ELO is something that naturally will grow if you're like as you get better, right? So if you lose games and lose ELO, it doesn't really matter, does it? You always have like just play and improve, and you will end up being where you should be in terms of ELO, and you will also naturally improve as you keep playing the game. But I understand there is a like what's it called, ladder tier. It's a very real thing. A lot of people struggle with playing ladder. Yeah, I think it's just easing up the tension and the feeling of pressure of playing ladder. It's not. It doesn't really matter, right? Ladder anxiety, that's the word. It doesn't really matter. You're just enjoy the game, and it goes how it goes, and in the end, it doesn't really matter how it, like if you... Let me send these spoons back. Every game, every loss, every win is a learning opportunity, and you start viewing it like that and don't really worry about how the results are. If you lose some ELO or whatnot, it might start getting easier, but of course it's also a thing that is way easier said than done. It looks to me like I lost some...
Okay, so I think that's just about the clip there. So Viper essentially says it doesn't matter. Now why? So elo matters if we think about it in two ways. One, it places you in the correct bracket for some tournaments, and other times perhaps to rank you in said tournament. So some tournaments place players in different leagues based on your elo. So we put all the 1200 to 1500s together, the 800 to 1200s together, and so on. If your elo, because you've been losing games, is lower than it should be, what happens? If you have 1300 ability, but you've placed in the 1100 league, you should win easily. So the worst that happens from you losing your rank games, when you feel like you shouldn't be, and if you really aren't supposed to be losing those games, you'll just get placed in tournaments and have a more easily easy path to victory than other players do. Other tournaments may rank you based on Evo, and so in that case, yes, you might have a tougher road, especially at the beginning. So instead of saying being ranked 5th in the league, maybe you're ranked 16th and have to play the number 1 person right away at the beginning. However, if you think about it, you have to beat essentially everyone else in the league to come out at the top anyway. You have to at least have the ability to. So whether you play them in the first round or the last round, you have to beat them at some point. And if you are truly an underdog, if you aren't the best in the league anyway, it is probably better for you to face them in the first round than in the 3rd or 4th or finals, because if you think about it, oftentimes earlier in the tournaments, they have fewer games that you have to play, best of 3, best of 5 as opposed to best of 7. And if you are trying to upset someone, it is easier to win a best of 3 or best of 5 than it is a best of 7. It's easier to win just 2 games or 3 games instead of having to win game after game after game. Additionally, sometimes in early rounds, players are not as familiar with maps. So if you put the preparation in, you can prepare something special that the player is not ready for. Some players don't look at the maps beforehand. They expect to just learn them as the tournament goes, especially if they're like, oh, my first round, it'll be a cakewalk. So instead, if you're the one preparing, you might cause a couple upsets and get it on through to the next round, having overcome already one of the toughest opponents. So no matter what round you have to face them in, you still have to be able to beat everyone. So in the end, having a lower elo is not the worst thing in the tournaments either. If you're getting ready for the pro level, elo is not even used by itself most of the time to rank players. Oftentimes the tournaments are using past tournament wins and losses, or sometimes they have players rate each other. So you more need to have respect from other players and from tournament organizers to get good seedings. And Evo is not, I mean, sometimes it's been used, but oftentimes it's not the only thing that's being used. If you think you should have, like, for example, 1,000 elo, but you sink down to 800 elo, yes, you might get discouraged, but the truth is, eventually, if you keep on losing, you will start facing opponents that are so weak compared to you that if you're really 1K, your elo will start to climb back up. And that's what Viper was kind of talking about, is that your elo is supposed to be reflective of what you are. And so if you're losing, maybe you ought to be losing. Maybe you're not really as good as what your elo says. On the other hand, if you are, and you just had some unlucky maps, unlucky mistakes, the other player was not really what he should have been ranked, eventually you're going to get back up to where you should be. It's going to go to your equilibrium. Your elo is designed to get into fairly even matches. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's more likely by playing, it's more likely that you play someone of an even ability or similar ability than is it we just had no elo and you just played whoever it randomly came up with. If you're afraid of losing, just think about what is the worst that happens if you lose. This is exactly what Viper said. You lose elo, but as we've pointed out, what your elo says doesn't really matter. You lose the game, but you usually lose because you made mistakes, and you should learn from those mistakes. Often you learn more from losing a game than you do from winning. There's more to grasp. If you always play people you can beat, you won't learn how to get better as quickly because they're not pushing you. They're not forcing you to learn how to counter new strategies or new abilities or people who can actually do things that are higher the skill level. You might be able to out-micro certain players, But then when you face the next Edo up, the next ability, all of a sudden you're the one getting slaughtered in the microfest. And so you need to play players of your ability, sometimes players above your ability, so that you get pushed. You need to lose sometimes, honestly, so you can be pushed to get better, so you can learn from your mistakes. Some players try to avoid playing certain maps even, and they refuse to play them. But the thing is most tournaments, it is not a choice to avoid maps, and there will be styles of maps that you don't like. Maybe you like open, and you don't want to play a closed map like Arena. On the other hand, maybe you dislike the open maps of Arabia. Maybe you dislike water maps. Maybe you dislike nomad maps. But the thing is that most tournaments are no longer just one style. And so you need to develop your ability to play all maps. If you ever want to get better overall, you need to play everything. If you're weak at a particular style, the question begs to ask, how do you get better? By practicing. You have to play that type of map to get better. I am a semi-professional long-distance runner. I ran the Olympic trials for the marathon twice, and in running, I used to hate running up hills. And whenever a race had more hills, I'd be like, oh no, I'm not good at hills. But eventually, I started running a lot more hills because I felt like I needed to do that to get better overall. And then as I started running them more, all of a sudden, my legs became stronger, and I started running faster comparatively to people on hills. And so hills that were a weakness of mine started becoming a strength. And now, as so often happens, people enjoy what they are good at. And so now, because I'm beating people on hills, I'm starting to like it when I see hills. And the same thing happens with Age of Empires. You might be bad at water, and so you dislike water, or you just maybe don't like the way it's played. That's understandable too. But the thing is if you start to kill people in water, then you might start to enjoy it a little bit more. And you'll have that option to choose it in certain tournaments, and because the other players don't practice water, they never play water, then you can get some victories against players that are stronger than you typically because you learned how to play water and they did not. So instead of avoiding certain maps, you should gravitate towards them. Oftentimes when I'm banning maps, I'm banning the maps that I am good at because I want to work on the maps that I am not good at, which is kind of the opposite of a lot of people. A lot of people ban the maps that they aren't good at, and so they're only playing the maps that they are, and so then they keep developing only what their strengths are. Now, I understand some maps that they've included in the map pool, they're not entirely fair, they're not good tournament style maps, so they're not really great for ranked play, but sometimes I've been in tournaments too where the maps included aren't always that fair. And so sometimes it's just good to even understand how to play maps that aren't entirely fair, just so that you get some of that practice in too. Some days you may not feel like playing those maps. You want to just play a map that you enjoy, and that's fine. You don't have to do this every single day. But it is something that often you should take some time, play some games on maps that you don't enjoy, so you get better at them. And then you enter the tournaments, you become more well-rounded, and you can pick your maps based on your opponent's weaknesses, which is a really strong thing to be able to do. When I've been in tournaments, don't always pick maps based on, okay, this is what I'm good at, but I look at, okay, this is what the other team wants to play. So I'm going to try and find the maps that they don't like. And that's where the greatest difference in my ability is going to come. You know, just because I am strongest on Arabia, well, if the other player is also strong on Arabia, then I may not have as much of an opportunity, whereas even if I'm only average on a water map, but the other player is horrible on a water map, I have a much better chance of winning than versus if we are both strong on something like Arabia. I also think it's also not best to just always play the best civilization for a map. Because in some ways, civilization bonuses are like legal cheats. If you think how, like, for instance, Britain Expo, it is so much easier to micro a mangonel down with Britain Expo than with Standard Expo with no bonuses. But if all you ever play on maps are Britons, because that's what you can choose, then you're going to be less prepared than if you practice with Vanilla Expo, because in tournaments, you're not going to be able to just play Britons all the time. And in some tournaments, if you have to choose civs or get civs banned, you may not be able to play them at all. And so I don't yell at people for, oh, they're picking Khmer again, or they're picking Britons again, or they're picking Aztecs again. That's up to them. If they want to just play the same civ over and over and over, that is fine. I know when the tournament comes, I'm going to have a better ability to play weaker civs, because I'm going to be used to it. In fact, I'm going to be used to playing a, quote, weaker civ versus a stronger one. But when they get in a tournament, when they can't just have the strongest civ all the time, they're going to probably even have a psychological issue, because they're going to have to play against someone without having that civ advantage, or possibly even having a disadvantage, and they're not going to be ready for that. Although it can be helpful to sometimes play the power civs just because only they can do something, so maybe you want to do a 1340 caster H boom, and some civs can't do a 1340 fast castle into a boom. And so you need to play a certain civ to practice that. And that's fine. But I just don't recommend always picking the strongest civilizations. I think it's wise to work on a lot of different civilizations, sometimes even picking civilizations that you don't like or that you don't feel like you're good at, just so that you can develop the ability to play with them. So then when you get a stronger civ in tournaments, you have a lot more ability. I think part of this is what makes Viper so good, is that more than any other player, he plays every style of map and tries out new units and abilities to see if they're usable in situations. He enters deathmatch tournaments, arena tournaments, Arabia tournaments, and most of the players, if you think about it, don't enter all of the above. Deathmatch, arena, Arabia, just everything. I remember him talking about some of his early days, I think as a Tyrant, where he was talking about where he and the clan or friends just played Nomad over and over and over, and that's, I think, when he started to learn how to play Nomad too. And so this willingness to play nearly everything has developed his abilities in so many situations and helps him to create new meta. He tries out new things. He figures out, okay, this is how Oregon guns can be played, and this is how Oregon guns are countered. And then you get other players who just think the Oregon gun always stinks as a unit and never use it, and so then when they do encounter it, they're not even sure how to counter it. And I think that also helps, like, playing the deathmatch, it helps your late game ability to manage everything. And so that strengthens that ability. You need to have the ability to sometimes boom, but you also need to have the ability to sometimes play aggressive. If you only play arena, how are you going to fare on open maps where you have to be aggressive? It's very important to play lots of different styles so you are comfortable with it. So when you encounter new players who play different ways, that you can play with them. So the point essentially is this: just play, try to learn from your mistakes, analyze what you could have done better, and work on that and get better. Fear of losing causing you to not play will only cause you to learn more slowly or not at all. The only way to get better is to play, take your losses, try to figure out what you're what you can work on, what you're doing wrong. But fear of losing, or worrying about your elo, or worrying about the civs that the other players are picking, all of that just is going to cause you to improve a lot slower than you any other should. So I hope you learned something from this. Again, realize that failure is your path to success. Succeeding all the time is not the path to success. So, check out my other videos and hope you have a good day.